Hello everybody and welcome to my review of the Olympus Trip 35 point and shoot film camera. This is an absolutely brilliant camera if you're new to film photography or if you're just looking for a secondary backup, simple grab and go camera to add to your collection. It's got this beautiful retro design, and that's because it was first produced in 1967, right up until 1984. And apparently there are 10 million of these out in the wild, although that could be exaggerated. Even if there's half though, that's still a lot, isn't it? And they're very easy to find on the second-hand market. I paid 150 Australian dollars for mine. That's about 100 American dollars or 75, 80 pounds in the UK. A little bit steep, but it was professionally CLA'd or cleaned, lubricated and adjusted. So that means a camera restorer took this guy apart and he meticulously cleaned every little bit and put it back together so that I know it was working flawlessly when I got it. And he also put on this very nice blue leatherette finish, which is not original to the camera. It came with black leather and in most cases the chrome body, like the example I've got here. There are some black ones around though, although they're much rarer. So if you do find one of those, expect to pay more. Quick tour of the camera. We've got a shutter release here, plastic in my case. Some of the early ones came with an aluminium one. We've got a serial number. We've got the film counter window. We've got a flash sync. And that's 1/40th of a second shutter speed, I believe, when it does the flash sync. Got a film winder. We've got the viewfinder window. We've got the advance wheel here. On the front, we've got the lens, which is really the main feature of this camera. It is a fixed 40mm f2.8 lens. And if you put some quality film with this, you will get some very, very sharp results out of this guy. I have been very surprised with the quality of some of the results I've got, and I'm not even shooting expensive films. This window up here is like a kind of a fake rangefinder. It actually doesn't do anything, and that's the front of the camera's viewfinder there that you look at through the back. I don't have any film, but I'll show you how you do load and how you operate things. So you got a little release thing there. Open it up. Here's the back. Basically, it's very simple. Lift that up. Put your film into there. Pull it across and into the slots there. Close it down, and then I'll let that guy go. Wind it on. Couple of clicks. You'll see the film counter wheel moving around, and when you get to number one, you're ready to go. And the camera by default is in what you would call program mode, I guess. So what that means is it decides the exposure settings for you. And the idea is that you don't really have to think much. You just concentrate on shooting photos. It is obviously dependent on the speed of the film that you load. And if we look at the front of the wheel here, and can you see this these numbers here? If I can just get this camera to focus, thank you, that's better. That's ASA, which is just the same as ISO in digital photography, and it basically goes from 400 down to 25. So that was supposed to be the range of film speeds that you can use with this camera. You can, of course, use faster speed film if you want, 800 or 1600 or 3200. But the idea was that you stuck to 25 and 400. So you tell the camera what speed film you've got. If there's only two shutter speeds, 1/40th or 1/200th of a second, you can't choose those. The camera chooses those. And then the other exposure parameter is obviously aperture. And the idea is that you leave it in A here. Can you see that there? And that's how the camera works basically, full auto. Really. You can change the aperture, and you can see the settings here. So it's just a bit difficult to do. Oh, in fact, I didn't have it on A. There you are. There, see that red line? There's A. You can choose 2.8 all the way up to f22. The point of that was for flash, actually, but that is a way of manually changing your aperture. The reason that you might do that, and the only reason I've done it, is to choose 2.8 in low light conditions. So I know that the camera is at least opening up the aperture to its widest setting. But I mean, it's really very simple. It's got a zone focus system. So we've got the different symbols here for landscape, group shots, pairs, and single people portraits, and that corresponds to some meters and feet numbers here on the other side, basically from infinity down to 1 meter. I tend to leave it on the red, the group setting, and aperture on A, as I was saying before, and then my film speed on whatever I happen to be using, and then just go, just basically just grab and go. That is the idea of this camera. It was marketed as a sort of a camera for the masses, for people to take on holiday and grab snapshots with, and in as sort of easy and carefree a manner as possible. It's great out on the street. You can get some lovely stealthy shots. It's small, you know, it's light, because it's got that sort of minimum of one meter focusing distance. You're not really going to get super close to people with this camera. For that, you're going to need an SLR essentially. It's not bad in low light, but it's not great. It doesn't excel in low light. The camera will choose a 1/40th of a second shutter speed. Obviously, there's no image stabilization, so you've got to hold it really still or put it on a tripod. It does have a 1/4-inch thread there at the bottom, which I forgot to mention. And oh yeah, this is the what would you call this? This is the sort of the release, the film release button. So yeah, I should explain. When you've exhausted your film, that what you do is you push that down. Oh, where is it? Here. Push that down. Very important. Don't forget to do that. And then you can wind the film back into its canister, and then it's a case of you'll feel it go in, and then it's just a case of pulling this down again. Sorry, a bit fiddly when I'm trying to look at the camera screen, and then yeah, it'll just be ready to pop up and take out, and you're good to go for the next one as well. Very, very easy to use. That was the whole idea of this camera. Just strip away all of the technical aspects of photography and just focus on getting out there and having fun taking shots. And incidentally, one thing I didn't mention about the lens, which I really like, is the 40mm field of view, which was quite common for these kind of rangefinder style film cameras back in the 60s and 70s. And that is very, very close to what the human eye sees, how we view the world, our natural point of view, or field of view, if you like. And I think it's fantastic, and that's one of my favorite things about this camera. Downsides, I would say the zone focusing I sometimes struggle with. It's surprisingly easy to stuff up your focus. Most of the time I leave it on that red 3-person symbol for general purpose stuff, but if I do want to get a bit closer to someone, I obviously go to the portrait setting there, and then what I found is that really introduces a higher margin for error, and you can quite easily get some shots where your subject is totally blurry. I have certainly stuffed up my fair share of photos because of that. Oh, I forgot to mention as well about the lens around the glass here. This is a selenium light cell. So this is how the camera reads the light in front of the lens without a battery. Now, don't ask me how the technology works, because I don't know, but essentially you don't need a battery, which is one of the best things about this camera. I should have mentioned just at the beginning, it is one of the best things that you don't need batteries to use this camera. However, one of the things that people do say is that with age and long-term exposure to light, these cells do apparently lose their sensitivity. So if you pick up a camera, obviously it's going to be second-hand, you don't know its history, it could have been left out in the light and these cells could be dead. I think on my example, they've probably lost some of their sensitivity, but it's not too bad. It's still quite usable, but just be aware that is a potential pitfall of this camera. But otherwise, what an amazing camera. It's just beautiful, it's fun, and as I say, if you're new to film photography, or if you're looking for a grab and go casual shooter that you don't want to think too deeply about when you're using it, you can't really go past the Olympus Trip 35. I've got some other videos when I go out and do some photo walks with this camera, so I'll put links to those. But essentially, if you're thinking about it, don't hesitate. Grab one while you can, because they are getting bought up. They are getting more popular and trendy, so they might become hard to find in the future. You never know. But thanks a lot for watching. Let me know your thoughts about the Olympus Trip 35 in the comments. Drop me any questions you've got, and I will see you in the next one.